Surprise.
The notification chimed on my phone at 11:47 p.m., just as I was wrapping up another late-night debugging session for a client's security system. Nate Foster, 38 years old, sitting in my cramped home office while my wife Julia slept upstairs. Or so I thought. The message was from Julia. A video file. I figured she was sending me something funny from social media, maybe one of those cat videos she always shared. I clicked play without thinking twice. What I saw made my stomach drop through the floor. It wasn't a cat video. It was Julia in our master bathroom, doing things that definitely weren't meant for her husband's eyes. The angle, the lighting, the way she posed, this was clearly intended for someone else, someone who wasn't me. I stared at the screen, my brain struggling to process what I was seeing. 23 years of marriage, and this is how I find out? Through an accidental text message? My phone buzzed again. Another message from Julia. Oops, wrong number. Delete that, please. Wrong number. Right, like I was born yesterday. I sat there for a solid 10 minutes, replaying the video, looking for any sign that this wasn't what it appeared to be. Maybe it was old, maybe it was some kind of joke. But the timestamp on our bathroom mirror's digital display showed today's date. The house felt different now. Every creak of the floorboards above sounded like betrayal. Every family photo on my desk looked like a lie. I grabbed my phone and called Ty Harris, my neighbor and probably the only real friend I had left. Ex-cop turned gym owner, the kind of guy who'd help you move a body at 2 a.m. without asking questions. Nate, what's wrong, man? It's almost midnight. You busy tomorrow night? I need a favor. Depends on the favor. Remember that baseball bat you keep behind your counter? The Louisville Slugger? There was a pause. Yeah, why? Bring it over around 7, and maybe some zip ties from your supply closet. Jesus, Nate, what happened? I'll explain tomorrow. Just be ready for anything. I hung up and stared at the video again. Julia's face filled the screen, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. Happy, excited, alive, for someone who wasn't her husband. Before we deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The next day crawled by like a funeral march. Julia acted completely normal at breakfast, chatting about her event planning job, complaining about her boss, Mr. Baird, asking about my latest IT consulting project. The performance was flawless. If I hadn't seen that video, I never would have suspected anything. Working late again tonight? She asked, buttering her toast. Actually, no. Thought I'd come home early for once. She paused just for a second. Oh, well, that's nice. Maybe we can watch a movie. Maybe. She left for work in her usual rush, kissing my cheek like she had for 23 years. The kiss felt like sandpaper. I spent the day gathering information. Julia's phone records, easy enough to access through our shared account, credit card statements, her social media activity, all the digital breadcrumbs she'd left behind. The picture that emerged wasn't pretty. Mason Grant, 40 years old, married, one of Julia's corporate clients, expensive dinners charged to his company card, hotel receipts, a paper trail going back 6 months. By 6 p.m., I was ready. Ty showed up at 7 sharp, carrying a gym bag that clinked when he walked. You gonna tell me what this is about now? He asked. I showed him the video. Ty's expression went from confused to angry to something darker. How long? 6 months, maybe longer. They've been careful, but not careful enough. What's the plan? We wait. Mason's car is already in my driveway. Has been since 5:30. Ty looked through the window at the unfamiliar Mercedes parked next to Julia's Honda. Bold of him. Stupid of him. We sat in my kitchen, waiting. The sounds from upstairs left no doubt about what was happening. Every creak, every muffled laugh felt like a knife twisting in my chest. At 8:15, we heard the shower start. That's our cue, I said. We went upstairs quietly. The bedroom door was closed, but I could hear voices inside. Julia's laugh, Mason's deeper chuckle. I turned the handle slowly. Unlocked, of course. Why would they bother locking it? I wasn't supposed to be home for hours. Surprise, I said, pushing the door open. Julia shrieked, grabbing for the bedsheets. Mason, a soft-looking man with thinning hair and an expensive watch, scrambled backward like a startled crab. Nate, I can explain. Explain what? The video you accidentally sent me? Or explain why there's a strange man in my bed? Mason found his voice. Look, this is between you and your wife. Actually, it's between me and both of you now. I nodded to Ty, who stepped forward with the zip ties. What are you doing? Julia's voice went up an octave. What you should have expected, I said. Consequences. Mason tried to run. Big mistake. Ty had been a cop for 15 years before opening his gym, and he still moved like one. Mason made it exactly 3 steps before Ty had him face down on my bedroom carpet. "Please, let's talk about this like civilized people," Mason wheezed as Ty secured his wrists. "Civilized people don't sleep with other men's wives," I replied. "Julia, get dressed. Both of you are going outside." "Nate, please, let me explain." "The time for explanations ended when you sent me that video. Move." We marched them downstairs and into the backyard. Mason, still in his underwear, stumbled on the deck steps. Julia had thrown on a robe, her face pale and panicked. "Sit," I told Mason, pointing to one of our patio chairs. "The neighbors will see." "That's the point." Ty secured Mason to the chair while I addressed Julia. 23 years. Our daughter Emma, the house, the life we built. Was any of it real? Of course it was real. This thing with Mason, it just happened. 6 months ago, I checked the records. Her face crumpled. "How did you—" "I'm an IT security consultant, Julia. Finding hidden information is literally what I do for a living." Mrs. Klein from next door had noticed the commotion. I could see her peering over the fence, her phone already out and recording. Perfect. "Nate, untie me right now," Mason demanded. "This is kidnapping. I'll have you arrested." "For what?" "You're on my property with my wife in my bed. I think most people would call this a citizen's arrest." Ty pulled out his phone and started recording. "For the record," he announced loudly enough for Mrs. Klein to hear, "we caught these two together in Mr. Foster's marital bed. Mr. Grant here was trespassing." "This is insane," Mason sputtered. "What's insane is thinking you could park your Mercedes in my driveway and not get caught." I left them in the backyard for exactly 30 minutes. Long enough for Mrs. Klein to get plenty of photos and for the story to start spreading through our neighborhood's very active social media groups. When I finally let Mason go, his face was red with embarrassment and rage. "You'll pay for this, Foster. I have lawyers." "Good for you. I have evidence." Mason stumbled toward his car, still half-dressed, while neighbors watched from their windows. His expensive Mercedes suddenly looked ridiculous parked in my middle-class driveway. Julia stood on the deck, crying. "Nate, we need to talk." "No, we don't. We need lawyers." The next morning, I moved into a hotel, not because I was running away, but because I needed space to plan. Julia called 17 times. I answered none of them. Ty met me for breakfast at a diner across town. So what's next? Now we turn up the heat. I had copies of everything. The video Julia sent me, photos Ty took of Mason tied up in my backyard, screenshots of their text messages and credit card receipts, a complete digital record of their affair. "You're not thinking of posting these online, are you?" Ty asked. "Not directly. That would be crude." Instead, I did something more surgical. I created anonymous email accounts and sent carefully selected evidence to specific people. Mason's wife, Allison, received hotel receipts and restaurant bills. Julia's boss, Mr. Baird, got screenshots of text messages sent during work hours. The parents at Emma's school received a tastefully edited version of events, focusing on the disruption to our family. By noon, Mason's wife had changed her Facebook status to "It's Complicated." By 2 p.m., Julia was called into a meeting with HR. By 5 p.m., the story was spreading through our social circles like wildfire. I picked up Emma from school myself, something I hadn't done in months. "Dad, is everything okay? Mom's been texting me weird stuff." Emma was 12, smart as a whip, and deserved better than lies. "Your mom and I are having some problems. You're going to stay with me for a while." "Are you getting divorced?" The question hit harder than I expected. "Probably, sweetheart, but that doesn't change how much we both love you." That evening, Mason showed up at Ty's gym. Big mistake number 2. I was working out, trying to burn off some anger, when he walked in looking like he owned the place. Expensive workout clothes, designer sneakers, the whole package. "We need to talk," he announced. "No, we don't." "You've destroyed my marriage. My wife won't even look at me." "Your wife deserves to know the truth." Mason stepped closer, trying to intimidate me. "You think you're smart? I have resources you can't imagine. I'll bury you in legal fees." "Ty," I called out, "could you show Mr. Grant to the sauna? I think he needs to cool down." What happened next wasn't violence, exactly. More like aggressive customer service. Ty escorted Mason to the gym's sauna, helped him inside, and then adjusted the temperature to its maximum setting. When Mason tried to leave, he discovered his designer clothes had somehow ended up in the ice bath. The security cameras captured everything, including Mason's undignified exit in a borrowed towel. "You're both crazy," he shouted from the parking lot. "Probably," I agreed, "but we're not adulterers." That night, Julia came to my hotel. She looked terrible. Red eyes, wrinkled clothes, the polished veneer completely gone. "Nate, please. We can fix this." "How? By pretending it never happened?" "By going to counseling. By working through our problems." "Our problems?" "Julia, you made a video for another man. You brought him into our bed. What problems were you working through?" She sat down heavily in the room's single chair. "I felt invisible, like you didn't see me anymore." "So you found someone who would." "It wasn't supposed to mean anything." "But it did. 6 months of hotel rooms and expensive dinners. That's not nothing, Julia. That's a relationship." She started crying again. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Sorry you did it, or sorry you got caught?" She couldn't answer that. The war began in earnest the next week. Julia hired a lawyer, Ms. Ortega, a shark in a business suit who specialized in making cheating wives look like victims. Mason, meanwhile, brought in his own fixer, a guy named Brad, who looked like he'd learned conflict resolution from action movies. They struck first. Julia filed a police report claiming I'd threatened her with violence. Complete fabrication, but it got me hauled into the station for questioning. Fortunately, Ty still had friends on the force. Detective Malloy, his old partner, handled the interview. "This is garbage, Nate, and we both know it," Malloy said, "but I have to follow procedure." "I understand. Check my phone records, my hotel receipts, anything you need. I've been careful to stay within the law." "What about the incident at the gym?" Mason Grant filed a complaint. "Check the security footage. He came in looking for trouble. We just gave him a steam bath." The complaint went nowhere, but it showed me how desperate they were getting. Julia was suspended from her job pending an investigation into her conduct. Mason's business partners were asking uncomfortable questions about his expense reports. They needed me to look like the bad guy. Brad made his move on a Tuesday night. I came back to my hotel to find my door slightly ajar and my laptop missing. Amateur hour. I'd expected something like this and had moved all my important data to secure cloud storage. But Brad hadn't expected the motion-activated camera I'd hidden in the room. The footage was beautiful. Brad, clearly identifiable, rifling through my belongings like a common burglar. I called the police immediately. When they arrested him in the hotel parking lot, he was still carrying my laptop. "I want to make a deal," he said during processing. "What kind of deal?" Detective Malloy asked. "Information about who hired me." Mason's involvement came out quickly after that. Conspiracy to commit burglary, tampering with evidence, harassment, the charges piled up. His lawyer managed to get him released on bail, but his reputation was finished. I decided it was time for a more public demonstration. Mason drove a vintage 1967 Mustang, his pride and joy. He'd posted hundreds of photos of it on social media, bragging about the restoration, the original parts, the perfect paint job. On Saturday morning, I paid a visit to his house while he was at his lawyer's office. The car sat in his driveway like a red beacon of arrogance. I didn't damage it. That would have been crude and probably illegal. Instead, I filled the interior with something much more memorable. Glitter. Pounds and pounds of craft store glitter in every color imaginable. I poured it through the slightly open windows, making sure it got into every crevice, every fold of the leather seats, every gap in the dashboard. Then I added the fish. Not fresh fish. That would have been too obvious. Canned sardines, opened and strategically placed under the seats and in the air vents. The smell would take weeks to eliminate, if it ever could be. The final touch was a note on the windshield. Cheaters deserve to sparkle. Mrs. Chen from across the street was walking her dog when Mason came home. Her scream of laughter could probably be heard 3 blocks away. Mason's reaction was even better. He stood in his driveway, staring at his glitter-bombed car, making sounds like a wounded animal. Several neighbors came out to watch, and of course, everyone had their phones ready. The video went viral locally within hours. But Julia and Mason weren't finished. If anything, the humiliation made them more dangerous. They tried a different approach, attacking my relationship with Emma. Julia filed for emergency custody, claiming I was unstable and potentially violent. She had Ms. Ortega paint a picture of an unhinged husband seeking revenge, a danger to his own family. The hearing was scheduled for the following Monday. I had 3 days to prepare my defense. Ty's girlfriend Lena turned out to be more helpful than I'd expected. She worked as a paralegal and knew the family court system inside and out. "They're going to try to make you look obsessed," she warned, "like you're more interested in revenge than Emma's welfare." How do I counter that? Show them who Julia really is. Not just the affair, but the pattern of deception. The lies, the manipulation, the way she's willing to use Emma as a weapon. We spent the weekend building my case. Julia's text messages showed a woman more concerned with covering up her affair than protecting her daughter. Her social media posts revealed a lifestyle of expensive lunches and shopping trips while I worked late to pay the bills. Most damaging of all were her own words, recorded during one of her tearful visits to my hotel room. I'd been wearing a wire, a precaution Lena had suggested. "I don't care what it takes," Julia had said. "I'll say he hit me. I'll say he threatened Emma, whatever it takes to win." The recording was legally obtained. She was in my hotel room. I had a right to record our conversation. Monday morning arrived like Judgment Day. The family courthouse felt like a mausoleum, all marble and echoing footsteps. Julia sat with Ms. Ortega at the plaintiff's table, looking every inch the wronged wife in a conservative blue dress and minimal makeup. The performance was Oscar-worthy. I sat with my own lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Patricia Wells, who specialized in defending father's rights. She'd reviewed all my evidence over the weekend and seemed cautiously optimistic. "Remember," she whispered as we waited for the judge, "stay calm no matter what they say. Don't let them provoke you." Judge Harrison was a stern-looking woman in her 50s who'd seen every variation of marital warfare imaginable. She called the hearing to order with the weary efficiency of someone who'd rather be anywhere else. Ms. Ortega stood first. "Your Honor, my client fears for her safety and the safety of her daughter. Mr. Foster has engaged in a pattern of escalating harassment and intimidation since discovering his wife's indiscretion. Indiscretion, like 6 months of adultery, was accidentally using the wrong fork at dinner. He tied up and humiliated Mr. Grant in front of neighbors," Ortega continued. "He stalked and harassed my client, violated her privacy, and engaged in acts of vandalism against Mr. Grant's property." She painted a picture of an unhinged husband spiraling into dangerous obsession. The glitter bomb incident sounded particularly damning when stripped of context. "Mrs. Foster lives in fear," Ortega concluded. "She's afraid to return to her own home. She's afraid of what her husband might do next. Emma deserves protection from this toxic environment." It was a masterful performance. If I didn't know the truth, I might have been convinced myself. Patricia stood for my defense. "Your Honor, Mr. Foster is the victim here, not the perpetrator. His wife conducted a 6-month affair, brought her lover into the marital home, and has spent the weeks since discovery trying to rewrite history." She presented the evidence methodically. The original video Julia had sent me, hotel receipts and credit card statements, text messages between Julia and Mason planning their encounters. "This is not a man seeking revenge," Patricia argued. "This is a father protecting his interests and his daughter's welfare from a woman who has shown a pattern of deception and manipulation." Then came the recording. Patricia played Julia's voice for the court. "I don't care what it takes. I'll say he hit me. I'll say he threatened Emma, whatever it takes to win." The silence in the courtroom was deafening. Julia's face went white. Ms. Ortega looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. "Your Honor," Ortega objected, "that recording was obtained without my client's knowledge." "In Mr. Foster's hotel room," Patricia interrupted, during a conversation Mrs. Foster initiated. "Perfectly legal." Judge Harrison studied the transcript. "Mrs. Foster, did you make these statements?" Julia whispered something inaudible. "I'm sorry, I didn't hear you." "Yes," Julia said louder. "But I was upset. I didn't mean—" "You didn't mean to commit perjury? You didn't mean to file false police reports? You didn't mean to use your daughter as a weapon in your divorce proceedings?" Ms. Ortega tried to salvage the situation. "Your Honor, my client was under enormous emotional stress." "Emotional stress doesn't excuse criminal behavior," Judge Harrison said sharply. "Mrs. Foster, I'm denying your petition for emergency custody. Furthermore, I'm ordering a full investigation into your allegations against your husband." Julia started crying. Not the dignified tears of a wronged woman, but the ugly sobs of someone whose lies had finally caught up with her. "Custody will remain with Mr. Foster pending the outcome of divorce proceedings," the judge continued. "Mrs. Foster, you'll have supervised visitation rights only." We walked out of the courthouse into brilliant sunshine. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe properly. "That recording saved you," Patricia said. "Without it, this could have gone either way." "What happens now? Now they'll try to settle quickly before more of their dirty laundry gets aired in court?" But I wasn't ready to settle. Not yet. That afternoon, I got a call from Emma's school. Julia had tried to pick her up during lunch, claiming there was a family emergency. The office had refused, following the court's custody order, and Julia had caused a scene in front of other parents and children. She was screaming about how the system was corrupt, the principal told me, how she was being persecuted for one mistake. It was quite disturbing. Emma was shaken when I picked her up. "Mom seemed really angry. She said you were trying to steal me away from her." "I'm not stealing you, sweetheart. I'm protecting you." "From Mom?" The question broke my heart. "From the situation. from all the anger and fighting. You shouldn't have to deal with any of this. That evening, Mason made his final mistake. He came to Emma's school the next morning, apparently thinking he could somehow intimidate me into backing down. I was dropping Emma off when I saw his glitter-bombed Mustang in the parking lot. He'd tried to clean it, but sparkles still caught the sunlight from every surface. He approached as Emma went inside. "This ends now, Foster." "You're right. It does. I'm willing to make you a deal. $50,000, and we all walk away." "You want to pay me to keep quiet about your affair with my wife?" "I want to pay you to stop destroying my life." Other parents were starting to notice our conversation. Mason seemed oblivious to the audience. "Your life was destroyed the moment you decided to sleep with a married woman," I said. "I just made it public." "You think you're so righteous. Your wife was lonely, neglected. Maybe if you'd paid attention to her? Maybe if you'd paid attention to your own wife, you wouldn't have needed mine." Mason's face turned red. "You smug piece of—" "Careful," I interrupted. "We're at an elementary school. There are children present." He looked around and realized we had an audience of parents, teachers, and even some older students. His shoulders sagged. "This isn't over," he muttered. "Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet." The end came at the neighborhood block party 2 weeks later. The annual summer gathering that Julia had helped organize for the past 5 years, back when she cared about our community reputation. I hadn't planned to attend, but Ty convinced me it was the perfect opportunity for closure. "Let people see you," he said. "Show them you're not the monster Julia's been trying to paint you as." The party was held in Riverside Park, just 2 blocks from our house. The whole neighborhood turned out, families with kids, elderly couples, teenagers looking bored. Mrs. Klein was there with her camera, of course, documenting everything for the community newsletter. Julia arrived fashionably late, wearing a sundress that probably cost more than most people's monthly car payment. She'd brought Mason as her date, a move that showed either incredible confidence or complete tone deafness. The whispers started immediately. Everyone knew the story by now. The affair, the custody battle, the glitter bomb incident. Julia and Mason might as well have worn signs saying neighborhood scandal. They set up at a picnic table near the playground, trying to look casual and failing miserably. Mason kept checking his phone while Julia smiled too brightly at anyone who made eye contact. I was manning the grill with Ty, cooking burgers and hot dogs for the community feast. Emma was playing with friends on the swings, blissfully unaware of the adult drama surrounding her. "They look miserable," Ty observed, flipping a burger. "Good." Around sunset, the event organizers set up a small stage for announcements and thank yous. The usual suspects gave speeches about community spirit and neighborhood pride. Then something unexpected happened. Mrs. Klein took the microphone. "Before we finish tonight," she announced, I think we should address the elephant in the room." The crowd went quiet. Julia's face went pale. "We all know what's been happening with the Foster family," Mrs. Klein continued, "and I think it's time we heard the truth from the people involved." This wasn't part of the program. The event organizers looked panicked, but Mrs. Klein was already in full swing. "Nate Foster has been our neighbor for 15 years. He's helped fix our computers, coached Little League, shoveled snow for elderly residents. He's been a good man and a good neighbor." She paused dramatically, looking directly at Julia and Mason. "Some people, however, seem to think our neighborhood is their personal playground. They think they can conduct their affairs in broad daylight, park their fancy cars in married people's driveways, and expect the rest of us to pretend we don't see what's happening." The crowd was riveted. This was better than cable television. "Julia Foster brought shame to this community," Mrs. Klein declared. "And Mason Grant, who doesn't even live here, thought he could use our neighborhood for his extramarital activities." Mason stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous. You people are like something out of the Dark Ages." "Sit down," someone called from the crowd. "No, I won't sit down. You want to judge us? Fine, but at least get your facts straight." He was making it worse with every word. Julia was tugging on his arm, trying to get him to stop, but Mason was too angry to think clearly. "You think Nate Foster is some kind of saint. He tied me up like an animal. He destroyed my car. He's been stalking and harassing us for weeks." "Because you were sleeping with his wife," Ty called out. "That's between adults. It's none of your business." "It became our business when you made it public," Mrs. Klein shot back. The crowd was turning hostile. Parents were covering their children's ears. The elderly residents looked scandalized. Mason had managed to offend everyone simultaneously. That's when Julia made her final mistake. She grabbed the microphone from Mrs. Klein. "You want to know the truth?" she shouted. "The truth is that my husband is a cold, distant man who cares more about his computers than his family. The truth is that Mason made me feel alive for the first time in years. The crowd was stunned into silence. Even the children had stopped playing. You people sit in your little houses with your little lives, judging everyone else. Well, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry for finding happiness, even if it wasn't where I was supposed to find it. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks, but she kept talking. Nate turned you all against me. He made me look like the villain when all I did was fall in love with someone who actually saw me. You fell in love with a married man, someone called out. So what? Love doesn't follow rules. Love doesn't care about marriage certificates or neighborhood gossip. She was spiraling, saying things that would follow her for years. Mason tried to take the microphone, but she pulled away. You want to judge me? Judge him too. Judge a man who cares more about revenge than his own daughter. Judge a man who humiliates people in public instead of fighting for his marriage. That's when I'd heard enough. I walked to the stage slowly, aware that every eye in the park was on me. Julia saw me coming and stepped back, suddenly uncertain. I took the microphone gently from her hands. My wife is right about one thing, I said. Love doesn't follow rules, but marriage does. Trust does. Honesty does. My voice carried clearly across the park. Emma had stopped playing and was watching from the swings. Julia made her choice 6 months ago when she decided our marriage wasn't worth fighting for. She made it again when she brought another man into our home. And she made it again today when she stood up here and blamed everyone except herself. I looked directly at her. I never tried to steal your happiness, Julia. I just refused to pretend I didn't see what you were doing. The crowd was completely silent now. Even the children seemed to sense the gravity of the moment. As for Mason, I continued, turning to face him, you're right, this started between adults. But you made it public the moment you parked in my driveway. You made it my business when you thought you could intimidate me into silence. Mason looked like he wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. I'm not a saint, I said to the crowd. I'm just a man who discovered his wife was cheating and decided not to pretend it didn't happen. If that makes me the villain in this story, I can live with that. I handed the microphone back to Mrs. Klein and walked away from the stage. The crowd parted as I passed through. Some people nodded approvingly. Others just stared. I collected Emma from the playground and headed for my car. Dad? Emma said as we drove home. Are you okay? I'm better than okay, sweetheart. I'm free. Behind us, the block party was breaking up early. Julia and Mason sat alone at their picnic table, abandoned by the community they'd tried to face down. The next morning, Julia's lawyer called. They wanted to settle the divorce quickly and quietly. No more court battles, no more public scenes. Julia would accept a modest settlement and shared custody of Emma. I agreed. The war was over, and I'd won more than I'd ever expected to win. Not just the divorce, not just custody of Emma, but something more valuable. The truth. Everyone knew who Julia really was now, and who I was too. 3 months later, I heard that Mason's wife had taken him for everything in their divorce. Julia moved to another state, claiming she needed a fresh start. She calls Emma every week and visits once a month, playing the role of the reformed mother. Emma and I are doing fine. Better than fine, actually. We talk more, laugh more, spend time together without the undercurrent of tension that had poisoned our house for months. Ty still jokes that I should write a book about the whole experience. Call it How to Catch a Cheating Wife in 5 Easy Steps, he says, but I'm not interested in reliving it. The story is over, the truth is out, and justice, messy, imperfect, but real, has been served. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be silent.